Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we're looking at the NX class. So, this takes us to the Captain Archer era of Star Trek. Um, Looking at our Decipher book here, so we have our mission profile here. Oops, and I'm one page ahead. I almost started reading the Nova class. That's not the one we wanted. We want the NX class. So, the first deep space explorer built by Starfleet, the NX class paves the way for the new era of human exploration. Outfitted with the fastest warp engine available at the time, the NX class can obtain speeds to warp 5, allowing mankind to travel further than ever before. The NX class was initially designed to be a test bed vehicle for the new warp drive, but included facilities suitable for first contact, exploration, and diplomatic missions. So that's just the basic mission of this. I don't want to get into all the other stuff. There's a lot of the other uh, sites and all that go on into a lot of the nuances and everything else. Um, I chose this one because we already hit the Constitution. We had to start there. I know there are a lot of fans for the NX for the Enterprise series. Um, I hate to tell you this. I wasn't the biggest fan. It's not because of the writing. It really became a big thing of growing up watching the original series. Um, some of the aesthetics and all that, because now we have flat screen monitors, which is a common occurrence today, which really does belong in a starship. But I'm used to looking at the old CRT monitors that they dressed up to be computer stations and everything else. So I just had a little bit of an issue there. For the couple episodes I watched, it wasn't an issue with the stories or anything else. It just didn't feel like something older than the original Star Trek. Because I'm an old gentleman and I remember watching the reruns when I was a little tyke. That was Star Trek. It had a feel of it. It's just that I couldn't get over it in my own head. So um, that being what it is, I know there's a lot of people out there that really love the series. So I figured that this is going to be our next ship. After this, we're going to hit the Galaxy class, and then we want to get some of the alien vessels in here, uh, just so you can see it. Now, I have two versions of this, so keep in mind these come from two different websites. The first one is from D6 Holocron. The second one is from rpggamer.org. I usually use them for a lot of different off canon or off the wall things, things that are not being put in books today because the books aren't available anymore. It's a great resource library for me for ships that we see in more of. If you're looking for stuff from the Mandalorian or anything else to throw into your D6 Star Wars, it's a great reference. And you can find a lot of other vehicles and all that stuff as well. They also have characters in there, so you can get character stats. And I'd go there to get my droids and everything else. So it is a really good resource. Just like the D6 Holocron has stats for your Klingons, Romulans, and all that, RPGgamer.org does the same thing. So, whatever one you prefer, if you get into doing this on the D6 platform, just you know keep in mind there's two different websites that you can go to, bounce ideas off of the people you're playing along with, and see which one you want to use because you like the way it works a little bit better. That's all up to the individual, and I understand that. So first of all, coming from the um, holocron dot d6 holocron, if I can think of this correctly here. All right. So this is the United Earth Starfleet, and Terran Empire NX class explorer. Now, I've said it on the last one. I'm not a big fan of the alternate universe there that gets brought in every so often. I just don't really feel a big need for it. I know it's done in the original one. They did one episode. I wasn't a big fan of that one either. So, just my personal view. for those that do like it, by all means, there's no hate, no, you know, I'm not going to talk bad about it. Everybody's got their own personal preference. So that's just, keep that in mind. And it's just, the silliness of who I am. Okay, so this is an exploratory cruiser, capital scale, length of 225 meters. I'm not going to worry about the others. So this puts it at a starship size category of 5. When we look at the Constitution class, the original, that was a size 6. That is really a big thing here for the Star Trek ships with size category. And that has been used in Decipher, Last Unicorn. I think even some of the D20 series had used it. And Modiphius is using that as well. I had to think of the last group. So it is something that's always put out there. What size category? Okay. Uh, Skill for piloting is going to be capital starship piloting. We have a crew of 80. A skeleton of 8 can manage the ship with a plus 10 to all of your rolls related towards the ship. We do have a passenger capacity of 10 people. Cargo capacity of 8,000 metric tons. Consumables for 1 year. Now, this has only got the warp drive. So we have a warp 2, warp 4.5, and a warp 5 for 12 hours. So we can sustain a warp 4.5 for a good duration, but we can get up to warp 5 for 12 hours. Then we have to slow down, let everything cool off, and then probably do a little overhaul along the way. Okay, we do have a nav computer. Obviously, I mean, why wouldn't we on a ship like this? Maneuverability is a 1D, so it is a little bit more maneuverable than what we had seen for the Constitution class. It's a space of 8.5. And again, they don't mind using the decimal. I like to keep mine at just straight whole numbers. Uh, and there again, the reason why I'm using the websites here is when I do mine, and I mentioned this in yesterday's video, I just hit the basic stuff. Your maneuverability, your space, the warp drive. I would just tie that in as being something Star Wars ish. So for me, if we're seeing warp 5, and I will go back here, and I don't know if you can see this or not as I flip back and forth. I'm going to go to the original one. So we could get, we were doing a 8x for backup and a 3x for primary. So we could go up to 3, okay? And that's at a 5.8. So I would say probably if we're going to do this, and I'm going to throw this in here. So we're going to do a little add-on. I would say that this is going to be a times 12, a 12x for backup. Let's see. And then we're going to have a 4x primary. So, okay. Now, I got to move my picture over because we can't see everything here. And we'll move this one so everything looks like it should. All right, so we get that idea. Okay, we have our nav computer. I already kind of covered all that. Our sensor packet here. So we have a passive scan out to 3 kilometers. Our active scan is out to 7. Our search is out to 10 kilometers. And our focus is out to 400 meters. So we have weapons. We have 4 Type 2 phaser cannons. These are going to be turreted. They're going to have turrets on them. Fire control of 0D. Fire rate of 1 and damage of 3D. So, a little less than what a TIE fighter is, but this is also, this is at starfighter scale, so a little less than a TIE fighter would be. And then we have 8 Type 4 phased plasma cannons. So this one is armed to the teeth. We have a 0 fire control, fire rate of 1. Damage is going to be at 2D, but this is also capital scale. So that means that if this was shooting at a starfighter, it would be a 4D, but we're also going to minus 2D for our fire control. Keep that in mind. Then we have 3 torpedo launchers, 2 forward, 1 aft. Capital scale, fire control is at 0D. Spread is 2, so we can shoot 2 at a time. We have 40 missiles or torpedoes all together, and they do 2D plus 2 damage. And then we have our grapplers to try and get any or to recover our shuttle pods. Or if we're trying to dock to something, we want our grapplers out there to try and help bring us in that too. Okay, miscellaneous. We have 7 decks. It was commissioned in 2151. We have 1 personal transporter. Complement. It doesn't say how many people we could actually. The personal transporter came in later. It was originally used for cargo, and I remember I did watch a couple episodes, so don't you can give me grief, but just keep in mind I did watch a couple. Um, there were issues initially doing it, and then they were, you know, I think this was supposed to be the first one that you could actually use for personnel. Otherwise, it had to be cargo. But capacity is 250 kilograms. Range is at 5,000 kilometers, so it has a range. And again, if we're bringing this into the Star Wars universe, do you want to allow transporters or not? If you want to just keep this as using the Star Wars books to run a Star Trek universe, I don't have any problems whatsoever. If you want to bring it into Star Wars, honestly, I think the best way to do it would be you would have to have another pad available to make sure you can beam to, so that way you can reconstruct someone. Okay? All right. We have a complement of 2 shuttle pods, which I don't have the shuttle pods here. And we have a description here, which is pretty much going to be close, I'm going to guess, as to what we have. We'll read through it. The NX class was a type of explorer ship, starship in the United Earth Starfleet in service in the mid-22nd century. The NX class was commissioned as an exploratory vessel as a medium for the new warp. Oh boy, I have a warp 5 engine. Okay. The first 6 ships of the class were named after the NASA Space Shuttle orbiters of the late 20th century. Example, we had, let's see, ENT, the Romulan war novel Beneath the Raptor's Wing. This comes from Enterprise, the Romulan war novel Beneath the Raptor's Wing. That's where they're getting that from. That's what they're trying to say. All right. And if I can read it correctly, then that's what would actually be done. Okay. So the NX class was to be the medium of the revolutionary Warp 5 engine. The Warp 5 complex was dedicated by Dr. Zemfram Cochrane and Henry Archer in 2119 on Earth. And of course, we have Broken Bow. That's the episode that it was in. On June 1st of 2140, Commodore Maxwell Forrest approved the design of the NX class. By 2143, the NX program was underway. Prior to the NX project, human ships were capable of exceeding warp factor 2. A series of NX prototypes, their design mirroring the Phoenix warp ship prototype, were launched. The Enterprise NX-01 was the first of the NX class starship built, registry NX-01, so not exploratory. My mind is fried here tonight. It's been a busy day. Okay. Experimental. That's what I'm trying to go for. So, Naval Experimental 01. The ship was launched ahead of schedule in 2151 under the command of Captain Jonathan Archer to transport the Klingon courier Klang Back to Quotnos. With a series of successful early missions, Starfleet decided to produce and build further NX class ships. By 2151, three more NX class ships were in the early design stages. Construction of the unnamed NX 02 had begun in August of 2155. The Challenger and Discovery were completed and commissioned several months later. The Atlantis and Endeavour entered service between mid 2155 and mid 2156. The Columbia, Challenger, Discovery. Um, Looks like there might be another one there in 2156. Nope, I think that's just saying, okay. Inter- See, I'm worried that I'm cutting things off here the way that this wrapped around here. So that's, I apologize. It's just the way the Excel is doing things here. Okay, Enterprise underwent a 180-day refit. The ship was fitted with a secondary hull, essentially becoming a new ship class. The newly refitted Enterprise saw more combat against the Romulan Star Empire during the early NX class production. Um would later be restarted by the end by 2159. I am missing some stuff out here. Captain Picard remembered 15 or 16 ships of this class having been built. Some of them would be Intrepid, the NX-07, Avenger NX-09, and Curie NX-16 that comes from the video game. Following the end of the Earth-Romulan War, Enterprise was decommissioned in 2161, with Endeavour refitted to what Admiral Jonathan Archer had designated the Columbia-class standard. No NX-class ship remained in service. All right, so this comes from Memory Alpha and Memory Beta. Now, um, as we go down here, now we have from RPGgamer.org, and we have the same ship but done a little differently. So this is how they had gone through it, or someone for their forum had done it. So the United Earth Starfleet X class, capital scale, length is 225 meters, beam 135. I think that's going to be the same, 225. Yep. Okay. I know there's a lot of fans out there, uh, so now they have the entire mass is 80,000 metric tons. We have capital starship piloting. Let's see. Alternate skill would be archaic starship piloting. Crew is 83, maybe 87, somewhere in there. Gunners 1, 13 if manually operated. So they're going through and denoting that. Skeleton, they're saying you can do it with 5 at a plus 10. Emergency evacuation is 100 to 150 for a short term. Now, that is something else that I remember seeing on some of these, and it's in some of the other game books. Uh, how many people can you overload the ship with essentially just to do an emergency evacuation and get them to a safe place? Crew skills, we have astrogation and all that stuff. Okay, passengers of 10, cargo capacity is 500 metric tons. So this differs from the 8,000 metric tons that we have from uh, D6 holocron. This has consumables for 5 years, so that would really make up for that change in how things are kind of done up here. So a lot of the extra cargo here is being used up by the consumables, where in the other one we only had, I believe, what was it, 1 year of consumables. Yes. So that would make up that huge difference in the cargo capacity. All right. Here we are. Of course, it's not available for sale. Warp drive. So they're seeing warp standard speed is 4.5 or a times 6.6 hyperdrive. Maximum is warp 5.2 which would be a times 5.8. Now, I don't want to make these seem so much slower than the Star Wars vessels because I want everything to be roughly on par. Okay, mainly because if I'm doing this, I want to have everything have an equal footing. All right, I don't want to see things kind of fall behind and so on and so forth. I love both genres very well. I'd love to have both of them in the same universe, so why not? So to me, I want to keep the warp and the hyperdrive running a little bit closer. Actually, when we get into like the next generation era ships, I would say once you start hitting a warp 9, we'll call it a 1x uh, hyperdrive. You know, that's because I want everything to kind of mesh a little bit closer. Okay, warp speed in a lot of forums. I kind of touched on this in the last one. Runs slower, so you could actually take your time and actually map things out better. You can do course corrections a little easier because you're not going as fast. Um, it's just some of those things that are there. I don't want to worry about the nuances. And as far as how fast you're going and how long it takes to get from point A to point B, I will keep in mind because this has happened a couple times in the series where technically to get from Earth to Bajor, you're talking about a year, I think at least a good year's travel. And yet we do have some episodes where you can do that in about a week. So everything is fluid. I don't want to get bogged down by the actual speeds and everything else. And if I'm going to put this into a Star Wars universe, I will use the hyperdrive so everything meshes a little easier. So I don't want to get bogged down by this is so much slower, whatever. I want them to be on fairly equal footing. So you can bash me for that, but my love for both of them, I just want to see both on relatively equal footing. I do want to recognize that this is an older ship. Yes, it should go slower than some of the newer ships, and so on and so forth. We can always say this was an older ship that was used for the exploratory core in Star Wars. And Star Trek does fit the bill for that. And maybe some of the Klingons and the Romulans and the Gorn and all them, they're planets that were lost because of the Clone Wars and all the infighting and all that stuff. So there's always possibilities to throw that in there. So, all right, of course, we're going to have our nav computer, so that's the same. This has got a maneuverability of 2D. Up here, I believe we had a maneuverability of 1D, which was still better than what we had been given for the Constitution class. Okay, speed, space is 4. I believe it said we had a 5.8. Yep, space was a 5.8. Hull is 2D plus 2. On theirs, our hull is a 2D, or if it's an upgraded version, it's going to be a 4D. Okay. Um, Defenses, we have polarized hull plating, which gives a plus 2D, and there is some write up down below for that. That takes the place of the shields. There are no actual shields. Our sensors, we can go passively for 3 kilometers, actively for 6 kilometers. Our surge is 9 kilometers. Our focus is 300 meters. Now, that is different from what D6 Holocron had. Our craft capacity here, we have 2 shuttle pods, 2 work bees, and weapons after the refit, we have 12 phase cannons located across the hull, retractable. So we have 4 front, left, right, 4 front. Okay, 4 in the front, right side, 4 in the front, left side, 4 in the rear, front, and you get the idea. Okay, or anyways, they're scattered around here. I'm going to mess this up yet. I know I'm getting tired. Okay, and we're looking at about a crew of 1 each. Okay, in the original series, we actually had, I believe, for one of these sections, I think they had a crew of like 3 or 4 people for the one phaser bank. So please keep that in mind. We're only saying we only need one person to manage the actual phase cannon. So that's actually kind of on the lighter side. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Fire control is 1D. Of course, we have our space range and all that stuff. Damage is 40. Fire rate is 1-2. In other words, you can shoot 2 rounds, or no, it's 1/2. So 1 round every 2, or 1 shot every 2 rounds. Okay, if I can say this correctly. I told you I'm getting tired. All right, special overcharge shot. So you can actually overcharge it for a couple rounds, and you can get up to 8D damage. Special pulsed phase cannons do a +2 damage. We do have 6 torpedo launchers. These are photonic torpedoes, not photon or proton for Star Wars. We have 4 in the forward, 2 in the rear. Crew of 1 each, 6 altogether. Capital scale. Fire control is 1D. Damage is 60 damage, and we have 60 missiles or torpedoes in all. All right, so weapons before the refit, we only have 6 plasma cannons. Let's see, located all the way around. Crew of 1 each, fire control of 1D, damage is of 2D, and fire rate 1 shot per round. And then, of course, then we have spatial torpedoes. We have 4 in the front, 2 in the rear, one crew of 1 per. Fire control is 1D. Spread is 4, so you can have 4 shot at the same time. Let's see, we have 60 missiles in all, or torpedoes, and damage is 3D +1. Then we have our grapplers, and then that's what we have here. Now, I apparently did not add the rest here. It's your call as to which one you really want to take. I will say, if you're trying to keep this completely in just Star Trek, the D6 Holocron really does a good job at this. If you're trying to bring this into the Star Wars, I think RPGgamer.org, their version brings it in a little bit better. But there again, you can do a mix of the two. Personally, and I'm just going to say it this way, I think I would take, I've got both of them on here, so they're both going to stay here. But I will keep the one from the D6 Holocron. And like I said, because I've put a ×12 backup, a ×4 as a primary for the warp drive, hyperdrive, I could always see that, the if the humanoids that are building this want to call it a warp, but it's really a hyperdrive, everyone else just refers to it as a hyperdrive, fine. That's perfectly fine. However you want to do it. So, it's neither here nor there. I think everything else is fine. I just like having the standard, our primary, our backup, and all that. So having this in here and just letting it go that way is okay with me. So however you want to run it, have fun with it. That's the whole point of this. And I want to bring out just the acknowledgement that somebody else, and I know I've done some of this on my own, but I don't have it as flavorful as what they have it. And that's why I'm choosing theirs. They have a better presentation than what I ever created. So I will take something that someone else had done, and I don't know who did this, but whoever you are, if you ever see this, please know I'm a fan of how you did this. You gave a very good presentation of it. And I feel blessed to be able to share it with everyone else. Hopefully we can get more people to visit the website here at D6 Holocron, or for the person that made it for RPGgamer.org, visit theirs and take their idea. With that, thanks for watching. Thanks for visiting. It's always wonderful to have you stop by. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next video.